So we have like a little over 30 people registered to it. So let's see how many can make it on this fine day that is warm outside for an internet session. Yeah. And everyone is welcome to connect their videos as well. So it's not just the names and the black background we can talk to, but it's good to see your faces and also your reactions if you like or dislike something. Yeah, thanks guys. Hi. All right, let's wait 1 more minute and then we start. Hi, Conrad.
Hi, Markus.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad to see that some have already participated in earlier sessions as well. Anton, nice to have you back, and many other faces as well. Joel, welcome back. It's we're bringing it, we're making it alive. So let's kick it off. So hi everyone. And welcome to the second how-to sessions on circular design, where we avoid the abstract concepts and try to unwrap what it actually means to design for circular economy, and how, like, what have we done before, and how to overcome the obstacles, and what's the experience that we have. So this is an open platform for everyone who has worked on different projects before. My name is Markus Vihma. I'm here from the Estonian Design Centre. I'm a circular economy advisor myself, but I don't want to talk about my work because I find other people's work is much more interesting to listen to and learn from. So last time we had presenters from Harri Moora and Marilu Valente. If those who noticed, Marilu was also featured at The Guardian like yesterday, I think, talking about sustainable packaging. And today we're going to have Ida Urmas from Finland Ethica Oy to talk with us. Hi, Ida.
Hello, nice to meet you all.
And Dan Mikkin from Brand Manual Estonia. Hi, Dan. Just so you know, we will be recording this session because I had many requests from those who couldn't make it, but would like to see it afterwards. We're putting it up immediately on like online somewhere, but just we want to have it and preserve this moment and have those people who registered to have access to it. And afterwards, maybe like if we have more of those sessions already done, then we can kind of make a video presence that is more permanent as well. But right now it is between you and us. Everyone is welcome to join in and talk and comment anytime they wish, and turn on your microphones and videos, because we are here and we're ready. Ida has worked with circular economy and circular design in Finland for good some time already, and previously she was in Berlin working on different circular economy projects. Also there, her background is in fashion design. And Dan is a service designer and a partner of Brand Manual, who has helped numerous companies working on really user-centered design, purpose-centered design, anything that really facilitates and streamlines the companies. We have listeners and registers from basically all over the world. A lot from Germany, Sweden, Estonia, Poland, Latvia, Macedonia, Brazil, United States, United Kingdom. Some of you are here, some are still joining, and some will hear about us afterwards. So welcome all, thank you all. And Ida, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you. I will just share my screen.
And I have my non-alcoholic beer ready for the Q&A.
Are you seeing anything yet?
Nope.
Okay. Oh, okay. Could you disable?
Ah, yeah. So my mistake. Make a co-host.
Okay, great.
And then you're a co-host now as well.
Yeah. So I think now you see my screen. Sorry, wrong format. There we go. Okay, great.
Perfect.
So my name is Ida Urmas, and thank you again, Markus, for inviting me here. It's nice to be here. I'll be presenting today a project I worked 2 years in Berlin, where I studied and worked in several circular design related projects, but this especially was the main project I worked. Couple words about me. So I'm currently working at Ethica. I'm based in Helsinki as a circular designer and cradle-to-cradle expert. Currently, I'm working with the Lab University of Applied Sciences in several circular design sprint projects, and then creating a bigger educational circular design program for an international electronic company. And the past 4 years within this project also I'll be demonstrating for you. I specialize in cradle-to-cradle design and certificate. So there's of course a lot of overlapping with circular design. It's technically circular design, but you just have to take a lot of aspects from the certification itself into consideration if you're working in a certification project for C2C. A couple words about Ethica. So Ethica is a circular economy sort of business consultancy. So we really focus in creating business solutions. And one of the methods for this is through design and creating new services and sort of innovations in that aspect. I think the focus on the business side with Ethica has been already a long time, because it's been considered that having a separate sort of a sustainability report or sustainability issue, or working more with the sustainability department, doesn't really work. The integration towards more like company strategies is very important if you want to move into a sort of circular or closed loop business. One case from Ethica, for instance, is together with Design Forum Finland, there's been a development of EcoDesign Sprint, where I also been working the last year, working with different SMEs in different sort of sprints, which take 3 days, and the outcome usually has been a development of new kind of product or service or so on, and then these companies have moved on with their development into creating more circular products or services. Another thing at Ethica, we've been more kind of diving into the circular design as a process and how that really looks when you try to implement it into companies' needs. So we kind of developed this sort of system harnessing the double diamond and sort of sustainability aspects or life cycle model thinking into working in circular design in a system level and product level, and kind of having those two levels parallelly, but also then kind of zooming in and zooming out in order to really create a product or service to circular economy. So these as a base talk about my current situation and now moving into the project. So I think the first thing when I got to know Cradle to Cradle way back was really the notion of, or the idea of design in it. So it is really a design driven sort of philosophy or way of thinking, which is also then a certificate, but more that how design can enable sustainable or circular solutions. It is founded by an architect and chemist, and this synergy came together how to really create safe and clean products for a circular economy. I will then now introduce the certificate itself within few words, because with this textile pilot project, it was so important to know some parts of this, because it really kind of reflected, or where you were working in this project, you all the time have to know how does this stand out in the certificate. And like I mentioned, it is a way of thinking or sort of philosophy, but it is also a certificate, which is very tedious. And then if you take a part in the certification project as a designer, you have to know quite well how the certificate is constructed and what kind of solutions you have to find. So Cradle to Cradle certificate is divided within 5 different quality categories and 5 different levels. It really aims for a continuous improvement. So you have these different levels from basic to platinum. And within these different levels, you have different criteria. So the criteria sort of gets more harder the higher level you get. And with these different 5 quality categories, you have these aspects which really reflect to design when you have to tackle issues within materials or product circularity, clean air, climate protection, water, soil stewardship, or social fairness. So kind of these 4 aspects of the certificate first want to quarantine that the social aspects within the production or logistics or wherever are in good conditions. So you really have safe and clean materials within the production. So you don't have to deal with toxic or whatever problematic materials. So this is kind of how the certificate is based. And here's some examples of the continuous improvement. I would say in the certificate really, and the most challenging area for a designer was the material chemistry. So it's really tedious process looking into the molecule level within the material. So for instance, if you would aim for a basic level, you would have the basic idea of, okay, I have biological nutrients, I have technical nutrients. These should not be bonded together, or if they are, they should be easily separated. So that's kind of the baseline for starting with materials. And then within the platinum level, you would have 100% transparency until the tier 5 level, usually within the manufacturing, you have different tier levels, and it's usually traced back into tier 2, kind of where you disassemble the product or so on, but you can't really trace the materials back to the chemical producers or so on. So this would mean 100% transparency. Or for instance, with the manufacturing, the water coming out from the production would be drinkable. So this is kind of, at the moment, maybe a bit utopian, but that would be kind of the ideal. Okay, so cradle to cradle in fashion and textiles have kind of taken off quite well the last 10 years. There's been big players going into this movement. Some of these to mention CNA, Stella McCartney, G-Star Raw, and Victor Raw, the latest one. And the project I was working with was the Lidl C2C certified sleepwear pilot project. So in this project, we had 16 running collections to be certified. We did pajamas and sleepwear and house shoes and bed to wear for these projects. The challenging parts, maybe I would say, when you work with a discounter or discounters such as Lidl, is really hitting the price point. So that's something what was on the back of the head all the time, how to really create so well-made products for circular economy with this price point. The production was also done in Bangladesh, which of course brought a lot of challenges for the certification itself and also for the transparency. I would say that my sort of new role also was to really take part of these site visits, which took either in Bangladesh or somewhere else in Southeast Asia, and really see the production and what's kind of going into the product. So it was really practical work, sort of, which is not new for a designer to go into production trips, but I would say that going together with the C2C assessor was a really new way of working and really looking into the material chemistry, really tracing back what material comes where, how does it really work in the production, and so on. One of the criteria of making these products was, of course, that they were done for the biosphere. So if you talk about products such as pajamas or casual wear, they usually have components such as stitches or labels or elastic bands or ribbons, which are not in the biological side as materials. So we would need to optimize all the elastic bands, all the stitch, all the yarns, all the labels and so on, so they would be safely biodegraded. And then within the production, you would really need to see that these materials would work. Even though like the discussion or the product was fairly simple product, it was really hard to fit in something or kind of trying to implement something new for so existing sort of garment manufacturing system, which in, let's say in Bangladesh, is very established and very efficient driven, to have these new materials working in the production, which needed a lot of testing. Then also another interesting sort of part of the project was really creating a pigment paste, which was biodegradable. This was also easier said than done. So it was a long research development process, like sort of a consortium, together with Lidl, EPEA, CHD, and Beneficial Design Institute, to really create a pigment paste which is safely biodegradable. So this meant that when we had the need for design, okay, we want to make these pajamas, the idea was kind of like, oh, but you can't make pajamas with anything on it if, you know, if it's not biodegradable. So there was really a need to develop this kind of pigment paste. So you would actually, well, you could then have some kind of decorations or printing within the clothes. Also, when you're working with cradle to cradle inspired design or within the certification, you usually either have two ways to go with the material. Either you use something existing which is already certified, so you have a safe bit, you know, okay, this material is optimized with its chemistry, the dyes are safe, or the yarn is safe to use, it's fully biodegradable, or it's fully in the technical cycle. But if not, you usually have to innovate one. And this was also interesting part of the project, because many of these ingredients or materials within the C2C certified categories are very expensive. So how to then produce something which doesn't really have, or how do you say, which doesn't really have the disclaimer of transparency and that it's really safe. And then you really have to dive into the supply chain and sort of the material producers you want to use and start to optimize the products together with them. So big part of the project was actually just trying to optimize and trying to trace down new material suppliers, trying to find solutions, kind of how to make biodegradable whatever like a shoe sole material. How can you take off some of the softeners? How can you test it? Having a dialogue with the supplier, trying to have kind of these tests out, putting them into lab and sort of, so this was really heavily research based and also very time consuming. So maybe the key takeaways from this project as a designer, I would say that combining this sort of tedious certification optimization process with the very high speed sort of established system with the discounters such as Lidl was very difficult to combine these sort of time-wise, but also price-wise. But it was also very rewarding and nice to see that you can come out with these solutions, even though you start with simple products such as bedwear and pajamas and so on, that you can actually make really safe and clean products produced in Bangladesh, and you can kind of have the same quality notion as you would have produced them in Europe. I think it was also a lot of reflection and kind of like what is really good for this cause. And of course, there's a lot of discussion that the production should be coming back to Europe and it's hard to trace it back and so on. But I think with this project, it was also making a point that this is possible in these regions where there is sort of notorious textile production or garment production, that you can also do it in a good way and also enable these local structures to have the agency of making cradle to cradle production. I think it was also interesting to see with the producers, maybe one of the first reactions would be that this is very difficult, this is so much extra work, why do we need to certificate with something new again? But once you feed in the process with this manufacturer and kind of going in, they would get very excited. They would start to want to optimize their yarns. If they had their own like R&D departments and yarn development departments, they would want to kind of go on with this and start to offer more C2C products or like materials or yarns or whatever from themselves. So I think it was an interesting project, a sort of process to dive into this and then go it through and then see what there is like room for innovation, how can we do it better. It's amazing that we optimized already so much of our dyes or chemicals, as you know, probably in fashion production, you have a lot of chemicals. It's amazing. You have so much chemicals within the dyes and the washes and so on. And then you have these big ETP plants where you have to treat the water in several sort of cycles within these big water pools. So that would be also kind of the aim, that this should be like lessened. This should be like not existing technically at all. You have so much waste, you have to manage so much chemicals, you have to manage so much dirty water, you have to manage. So the idea is also to to cut down costs and not have all these sort of waste and toxic management. I think that was it, actually.
Super cool, Ida. Thanks. I was curious that did it. So you actually succeeded. Like you came up with a collection that is on sale at the company in the shops, or was it kind of an exploration of sorts? Ida, can you hear me? I have to answer the question myself. She'll be back. Oh, shit, there she is.
Oh, I totally just disconnected.
No, I knew you'd be back. I was curious if, like, about two things. Yeah, we can hear you. It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was curious about two things. First, what was the like design challenge, or what was the starting point? How was it defined? And did you actually come up with a solution that is you finish the product and the product series, and they are on sale in the shops?
Yes, so they're coming now partly. I think some of the first ones, I had to move location because I think something was wrong at my room.
Thank you.
Yes, so they came out, the first ones maybe last spring, I think so. Not this spring, I mean last spring. And then they're coming in these cycles of every few months. I think I must say it hasn't been the most successful project for Lidl for sure. But this is something I can't speak to them. It's also, I have a limited agency to speak about the project. But I think it was really emphasized to be a pilot to test, maybe this is a way to go. There are different ways to approach, obviously, sustainability and different certificates. In the fashion sector, there are so many certificates, there are so many approaches. And I think this was something very interesting for them. They wanted to test, but I have not really the latest information what they will now do with everything of this. Of course, this was also documented. Maybe I didn't mention there were also the circular design guidelines created for them based on the C2C principles. So then these can be used internally within the buyers and the manufacturers and designers and whoever is there, different stakeholders, to use these and kind of take some of the learnings and use at least some of it within the next projects. But I'm not quite sure.
The goal was to get just any C2C level, or was it like, okay, let's hit the C2C platinum?
No, it was, the gold level was really like firmly kind of in mind, and it was ambitious enough, I would say. I think they had 2 levels with different products, gold and silver. And I think sometimes it was difficult with some other producers than others. I mean, the whole production line will be kind of good or like almost perfect, but then you would have some process chemicals. You would have few process chemicals within the production which wouldn't meet the criteria.
But how did you get the whole chemical substance info? Because you said yourself that this was really a difficult, tedious task, so molecule by molecule, basically, and that's what Cradle to Cradle requires. Like, how did you get this information? Did you have partners, or did you do it yourself?
No, it was done together with EPEA Hamburg, which is part of the. It's not owned anymore, but it was owned back in the days by Michael Braunkart. So it's really a like a consultancy for circular economy, but they do these material health and then these cradle to cradle assessments for the chemicals. So they do really then look into the chemical level. Usually you also have this material health testing, which you really do then in the laboratory. And this is one of the main reasons why the certificate gets relatively expensive. It's really this tedious work in a chemical level. And I would say you don't really have this in any other certificate. It's also something which is criticized a lot because somehow it can be sometimes seen too expensive or sort of too ambitious on that level. But it's also trying to quarantine that whatever material you create now, it really feeds in safely either for the biological cycle or technical cycle. But I think it's going with baby steps.
Do you think that, like, having done such research for the company, do you think it will spill over to other lines that were not in the scope of this project? Because they have
I think,
information.
yeah, I think that's like has been always sort of the aim. And I think, in my opinion, I think this kind of chemical assessments and working with C2C should be going more open source. But I think that it's been very beneficial to like create these consortiums where kind of different, let's say different brands would kind of feed into their like let's say chemical data. You can then kind of assess, or that you could kind of have this sort of NDA with a trusted body who then like will analyze these materials and so on. So that would kind of distribute in the area, in the industry overall.
Mm-hmm.
I think EPEA, for instance, of course, is doing that. They have immense chemical databases. It's crazy how much they assessed chemicals. But also there's, I heard that there are new chemicals like invented every day, like 10,000 or 1,000 or something. So it's endless. And then, of course, you have this kind of open source tools such as MaterialWise, where you can also already do some of your assessment by yourself, sort of a self-check. And usually how you go into this with a new producer is really asking basic things such as technical data sheet and material safety sheet. And this is how you get into the material information.
Mm-hmm. But like the open source point, I think it's a fair point. Like you said, you developed the pigment for prints. Is it something that now, who actually developed it? Was it the C2C? Was it Lidl? Was it you?
No, it was more like, I would say CHT, which is one of the biggest chemical companies. It's a Swiss company. And I think Lidl, of course, pitched in for the research and development. So they got the rights to use the pigment first.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the rights to use the pigment for the couple first years, and then it's open to the market, where I think then other brands can also buy this pigment paste for their production.
Is there some sort of like an open source, like when you, for example, when you start off a new project and you have to assess the material health all over again, like how would you go about it? Like, is there some things you can do besides ordering like assessment from the company, or like are there already available databases you look for in at first?
Yeah, I would say this material-wise is quite interesting to use, just to like see if there is any problematic chemicals you doubt there might be.
Material-wise?
Material-wise, yeah, it's an open source database. I think it's also something which is now kind of developed more in an ambitious level. I sometimes use it in my work to do like a pre-assessment.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you have the C2C, like a cradle-to-cradle product registry, where you have all these materials which are certified. So this is often how you, when you go on about a new project, you go into this product registry and see what's out there, kind of what kind of materials or base materials I can use. And if not, then you might contact a supplier who possibly could be interested.
Mm. So you
but I but I still want to emphasize that there are so many companies or like brands who also just use it as a framework or an inspiration, who don't go into the certification process.
Cool. Does anyone else have questions before I shoot with mine? Mike, you're free to unmute yourself and just intervene and ask questions. I was curious, like, if you actually met the price point. You said Lidl is known for also like being like price sensitive. Was it possible?
Yeah, the price, it wasn't possible to get exactly the right price point. It would be almost suspicious also to get C2C products with €2 t-shirt price, but I think it was something 20 to 30% more.
which is not a lot at all.
It's not a lot, actually. If you look like as a product, you would find like pajama set for 6 or 7 euros, but obviously it's a different, for them, it's a big change,
Mm-hmm.
or big like a price difference.
Mm-hmm. And like I've seen like Bangladeshi manufacturers myself, and I quite agree that at first it's very burdensome if someone comes with some environmental kind of ideas that how we should change the way we produce things. But they oftentimes are even the most motivated in the whole supply chain to make the change.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I also felt that I also felt that kind of the knowledge there was immense. So you would have amazing garment technologists, chemists, environmental engineers, sort of, who are just specialized in the garment industry. So I thought also that it's a very colonialistic view to come from here with sort of, this is how you should do, or this is sort of sustainable in this way. Of course, the climate change and these problems are immense there. It's the air is bad, the water is polluting, the garment industry is taking so much water. So of course, there's so much worry about the situation and how they can enable their life in these regions. And I think it was very interesting that, of course, you go in with these new sort of ideas and as a brand sort of, but you need to give also the agenda and sort of the expertise for these people who work there with these issues every day.
Mm-hmm. Anton, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. I think it's an extremely interesting case because you basically have the hardest point in, if you have a matrix, you know, like with how difficult is it to reach and price-wise, so you're like really in the corner, which gives a very good extreme example of fitting those two together. So my question would be related also to the previous point of being economically feasible. So Lidl, they decided voluntarily that they would like to try the kind of more or less the hardest certification. And I guess they knew already that with their promise of, you know, like, I mean, they are advertising Lidl is billig, means Lidl is cheap, that they cannot sell very expensive products. And also people, I think, expect to have kind of value for money, of course, but to find, if it's pajamas, not so expensive products. So what was their main expectation when doing this research project? Was it really to see like how far can you go, or if you just do it and it's possible to see how far are we away from like being economically feasible, or we need to orientate ourselves to another label or whatever to find maybe the match between what they can still do to, you know, like not make losses and still have a kind of green touch towards the customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think definitely the business case is very important to get sort of the learnings and the experience of that, and also to, so one thing of course was to do the project and do this sort of tedious amazing work and get these good products out, but also one thing then was to really test the market and test how this difficult sort of certificate is communicated into a discounter level. And I think, for instance, this wasn't communicated so much from Lidl's side because it was sort of, I don't know how to say it, it was only a small project within their whole kind of operations or what else they do. So it's also a fear that you don't get labeled as a greenwasher, you know. So I think it wasn't marketed so much, and also the price point was not so easy for an average customer who was just there for the price, not for sustainability. I'm not quite sure. I can't truly say what are the what's their agenda is at the moment, but I would say that it was really kind of going into with that mindset to see whether it is possible to do this sort of ambitious production in this certain way within the C2C criteria, and see if it's feasible, and then kind of take the learnings of it and kind of see probably how to implement these learnings to the different production areas. But I think one thing also with C2C is really the key thing, and I think it's easier for smaller brands, sort of, if you really have that supplier relationship, you know, you should have you should kind of have a long relationship with them, so you kind of don't have so much issues with transparency. But I would say in the discounter world, it's not like that at all. You compete the suppliers, as in fast fashion, you compete the different kind of offers, and you know, one day you might have this discounter, for next project you don't have this anymore. And I think that's almost like impossible in relation to the certification, that you don't build these kind of long-term relationships in order to create trust and transparency. So whether something from there, also the way of working within the C2C and kind of creating this kind of relationship more with these like good producers might be also something which is hopefully implemented somehow.
How long did it take overall, the whole project from start?
I think the planning and so on, and kind of making the whole scope with that, and kind of having most of the products. I mean, the products are still coming out, but I think overall something like 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I was 2 years of the 3 years, kind of more involved.
All right. Thank you very much, Ida. She won't be staying with us till the very end. So if someone really has questions, like now is the time. Otherwise, Konrad, you have a question, please. And Joanna. Konrad first, please.
Actually, I have just one short question. Would be from the procedure you have taken. So normally, how did you start the whole process? From the beginning, like, did you also start with a kind of sprint with them, or did you go this kind of C2C? Do they have a specific procedure you followed? And yeah, actually, it was Lidl who contacted you, or how also did they get on this trip for the city?
Joel has a very similar question. Maybe Joel, you want to ask?
Yes. Basically, my question would also be, how would you divide the stages of the project throughout the 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I actually can't answer, because I wasn't in the start creating the project plan. So obviously there has been a very good pitch for the project, and I think Michael Braungart also was very involved within the project as an advisor, and also kind of getting sort of familiar. And then also my previous employer from Beneficial Design Institute. So together with EPH Hamburg and Beneficial Design Institute pitched the idea. When I came in, it was already laid out. So the processes were already running, the kind of productions were already running, and the certifications were then kind of starting out, sort of. Some of the things maybe had been certified, but I kind of jumped in the very start to supervise then 16 different certification projects. So I'm not quite sure if there were like sort of sprints, or of course they would be as traditionally, I think usually with Cradle to Cradle, of course the whole certificate and the philosophy and everything around it has to be explained thoroughly, and of course to have some kind of workshops around it. And also I think there was a lot of workshops also for the different stakeholders, so they really understand kind of this whole kind of the goal and the outcomes of the project, but also kind of what it means kind of for them, how much they need to be involved and so on. But I don't remember, or I don't think there were some specific stage which were divided for the project.
And there's a last question before we switch to our next speaker. Külliki, you wanted to touch upon the price point.
Yeah, I just wonder whether the customers have been willing to pay this little extra for the sustainability, because as we know, often we are acknowledging the problem, and we all want to be more sustainable in our action, but when it comes to real actions, then we may still choose the cheaper one. Do you know the results of this?
No, I don't know in detail. I know different countries perform different ways, and also because Lidl is so huge, you have different country departments which usually take part of the marketing. So the marketing was done very differently within the different countries. So some were a bit more in a creative way, some were a bit playful, easy to digest way, and some were maybe a bit more tedious, a bit technical, and so on. So I think this also played a role. I know Lidl, for instance, had succeed a lot in, like, let's say baby wear, which is organic and like GOT certified or whatever, you know, because it's so important to dress your child in like healthy, good sort of textiles, which are not like in any way like cause allergy or so. But I think it was a bit different considered in these products. Maybe for the kids wear, it was, I would say, maybe a bit easier to pay a bit more, but then also it's just maybe my assumption of it. We thought that that would probably be something what customers would pay a bit more, because you talk about bedwear, you talk about pajamas, you talk about kind of intimate wear, which is close to your skin or you sleep on it. But I think it was a bit different from country to country.
Well, thank you so much, Ida, and thanks for joining us. If you have more questions about it, then her LinkedIn contact is at the Eventbrite page as well. So feel free to contact her, and I'm sure she is not shy with
Yeah.
that. And I would
no, just go ahead.
I'm
happy.
Kiitos paljon, Ida. Ihan kiinnostava. And Dan, I would like to introduce now the other side of a like textile industry. Like now we have looked at the one collection, one product line, but Dan is here to talk about setting strategic goals or having a kind of a broad spectrum approach to how to at all kind of commission things and how to operate the whole company as such. And this is what you were working with and helped another interesting company. Dan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Markus. Hello, everyone. I'll share my screen and walk you through my case, and then we can have a chat face to face. So let's kick it off. One moment. It's not that easy. One moment. Yes.
And I thank you, Joel. I think the answer actually to the question, if while Dan is getting back, Dan had some problems with the internet. He'll be back. Is that you are working as an external consultant? You were not an employee of Lidl itself. Is that right? Dan pushed the wrong button. All right, let's. We can start early with the beers. He's back. Sorry about that. It happens.
Sorry about that. I have a new computer, so things need adjusting along the way.
No worries.
I love my old one. So let's try it again. And please, Markus, you must make me co-host again.
Yeah. There you go.
Yes, now seems to.
Yes, we see it.
And it went orange, right?
Yes, perfect.
Mm-hmm. So I'll be talking about circular design, circular process in a large textile manufacturing company, which unfortunately I can't disclose what company that was exactly for non-disclosure reasons. A few words about myself. My name is Mikkin. I come from a company called Brand Manual. I'm a service designer, which means that we are bringing closer together two different viewpoints. Businesses, either they are producers or service providers, and who look at the world as millions of users down there. And then we go back down on the user side, and they're surrounded by millions of businesses who strive for their attention. And we try, and this is our job, to bring these two viewpoints closer together. Working with companies means also that we start almost every time with people inside the company. So we have to define what values bring them together. So it's not just the owner, it's everyone in the company has to work for the same goal. And once these values have been found, they're always there. You just have to dig them out. Then you can translate that into the value for the end user or business to business clients. So this is our everyday work, working with companies big and small. And today I'm talking about circular design, circular process, and circular economy, standing on the shoulders of giants. So I have not invented a bicycle. One of like fundamental wells of knowledge is Harry Mora from Stockholm Environment Institute, and he previously worked also with Geological Survey of Estonia. He has been the driver behind several waste management like national-wide projects. And circular design audit is one of the things that that he preaches and helps companies to go through. And that's one of the things that we took along in our process. So coming from waste management, he also is very much focused on materials. How to waste them as little as possible, how to increase their value, how to slow down the usage of materials. Now, forward to my case, that was a big textile company, and we took kind of Harry's model and modified it and applied it in that particular case, and starting with mapping out what that company is already doing. So,
and can you maybe paint a picture for us? Like, what sort of company is it? What part of the supply chain or value chain do they play?
They are a huge textile producer, and they are mostly working for other brands. So they have big department stores across Europe, and they have their own product line, but that's mostly for as a showcase. and selling their garments under other brands for really big and familiar brands around Europe.
Do they make their own fabric or do they buy it in?
Yes, yeah, that they do their own fabric. So textile, yeah, they bring in raw materials and wave their textiles, and then they sew them together, pack them. So basically, they will process all the way to printing the labels and shipping them to their clients' stores.
Vertically integrated, they say. Right. Thanks.
Exactly. So there are a lot of people involved. There are a lot of departments involved. And first, we use this circular model to understand, who is involved, who are the responsible people, who are the responsible departments. Unfortunately, we had access to a lot of responsible and smart people within the company. So we were working with the purchase department, with the sales department, with product development, with production, also marketing. So throughout the whole chain, and they all had done something, but surprisingly, or not that surprisingly, they were not aware of what the other departments are doing. So the classical kind of silo case. So we use this model to bring them all together, kind of giving assignments to different departments. But please go and dig out what exactly are you doing. Some of these things are initiated by the clients. Some are initiated by the people inside that manufacturing company. So a lots of bits and pieces that were somewhere around there, but they were never brought together. So we use this circle to put it all on the map, starting with sourcing. And something that it also was referring to, that where they get their raw materials. In their case, it's mostly synthetic production, but also cotton, and so how it's grown, where do the chemicals come from, who are they treating their workers responsibly. All these little bits and pieces, because they had certificates, they had to comply with the regulations. So thanks to these certificates, they already had covered a lot of that. Then on to production, that how much energy they use, how much water they use in the process. Again, in their case, they all use almost no water. They basically use water to make coffee for the workers. How much emissions they emit. Again, since the machines are all electrical, you just count how much CO2 is emitted by the power companies, not them directly. But you could trace all that. Waste management, in their case, again, they were very good at that. They had identified their waste. They were sorting it and reusing it as much as possible. Also using their own offcuts in their own production. So onto selling. So how do they package the goods? What materials they use for that? How it goes across Europe? So for that reason, they had production facilities not just in Estonia but in Central Europe as well, to keep the distances within sensible limits. Unfortunately, they could use rail transport because that would have been the most efficient one. We're still waiting for the Rail Baltica to be built, so that would help them eventually. But now they just could say that they are not using air cargo, which is good enough. Using, how do you maintain the products? How do you make them usable for as long as possible? There are caveats there as well, and is there any buyback system? And from that, yeah, if there is a buyback system, that can you reuse the products in the next circle. So that was the first stage of going through all the steps in the life cycle of a product. And we used exactly this tool. Yeah, I can't disclose the numbers, but putting the numbers on this one big sheet, so everybody had it in plain view. Okay, we have saved so much liters of water, we have cut down something by so many %, we are sorting 100% of our garbage, and so on and so forth. So it was all in plain view. From there on, we made it even more kind of dramatic. So color coding it in a way that the stuff that that is already there, as I mentioned, they have pretty well covered their sourcing, where the materials come from. They know that it's as sustainable as is possible, considering that it's mostly synthetic. That's why it's in the green, and some other areas are also or green or in the vicinity of it. And there are some things that they are not doing really still. So it was meant as a live tool. So these color codes would change, these segments would move around, which ones are performing better or worse. Ideally, of course, everything would change for the better. But that was again in plain sight for everyone. So that was kind of internal tool. But it also mapped out that that's only halfway. We know how circular our process is. How well do we let materials re-enter our cycle? Just doing it is not good enough. You have also to talk about it. Yeah, first internally, so that everyone, not just people in the work group, but all hundreds of people working on the floor, they are aware of what's going on in the circular, from the circular point of view. Then addressing their corporate clients, that again, nowadays quite often you can't even get to the door if you don't prove that you are a sustainable producer. So it was crucial for them to have that proof, and all the way to the end users. So even if they are not selling under their own name, then providing that information to retailers is something that is accepted with open hands and actually gives them a competitive advantage. So having the information and then figuring out how to pitch that information to all the parties that need to know it. So this was more or less the end result, really simplified, considering that most people are not that aware of circular design or circular process. So how to guide them to that through very simple categories, and then in case they are interested, open it up. What do we mean by one or the other topic, and how well we are performing in these departments. As said, we are not inventing a bicycle here. I really consider this a good sign that other textile producers are thinking in the similar similar fashion, using similar models. Yeah, they have a bit different setup of steps, but it ends up in the same round movement. So you're seeing a lot of circles today. That was H&M. We used also Marks and Spencer as a very good benchmark of getting numbers behind their actions. So this is a huge challenge for companies, for my clients as well, that they figured out what are the steps. They even were doing things to make them more sustainable, but it was really hard to get figures behind them. That how many percent have they reduced something, or what's the kilowatts of the energy that they produce with the solar panels. So that was a good benchmark, that when you start to prove your intentions with real numbers, then people start to take you seriously, and you'll have a much better understanding yourself that how well you are performing. And not to focus only on big companies, there's a very good benchmark here in Estonia. It's a tiny company, and Retaus, the brand owner and bearing the same name, she's very well aware that she won't change the world just by her own company, but she's very, very articulated in what she's doing. She's 100% making her garments out of production offcuts. So no new material is used in her production, and she's basically a preacher of circular design and circular manufacturing. So using these good cases, we helped our client to come back to that circle, and giving these very departments that we were working with new tasks. Yeah, now you know what are the actions, but please have the numbers behind all these. And for example, with solar energy, we now have the exact kilowatts that they produce, and we know what is the percentage that they cover of their warehousing and production. They cover 100% of their warehousing, and a certain percent of manufacturing as well, without buying any fossil electricity from outside. So this is the showcase, and I thank you for your attention. Aitäh. And if you have any questions, then shoot.
Thank you so much, Dan. I think this is a brilliant example of, as exactly as you said, that you can't manage what you don't measure. And it's an example of how the abstract concept of circularity will have to become more concrete. And those are exactly the steps, not the easy steps, obviously, but those are the steps in that direction. Basically, what you did was not only just like kind of led the company through the circularity of explaining what it is and how can they participate in it, but you actually developed a set of KPIs for them, like key performance indicators, which is really a management tool. So this was like a strategic consultancy, or the management consultancy work that you did, was it? And how will they use it now? Do you know?
I don't have the latest figures, so they have to get their numbers straight. I know that they are working on that. So that is one of the reasons that they haven't gone public with that. I would love to be much more concrete and tell you about the company and what are the exact achievements that they have done, and I'm just longing for that to happen. But so far they say that they have to be 100% sure that every number is as it is, and move on. But definitely they won't cover the full circle. So in many cases we just have to say that we are dealing with it, but we on our part, we were very ruthless, let's say, in a way that you can't bullshit your way out of it. You can't claim stuff that we kind of doing it. So if you're not doing it, then say that we have a goal and we are striving to make it happen, but don't be vague in that regard. That yeah, highlight the stuff that that's already there. That's a good thing. That's absolutely okay. Yeah, have big pictures of solar panels and piles of offcuts that they go straight into their production again. So that's reality, and work on the lagging bits.
So they actually periodically revisit the thing. They sharpen the measures, the numbers, and the indicators themselves. And will it now become like exactly like a periodic tool that they are going to use every now and then, and see the change in every figure that there is, like coming from, let's say, recycling 30%, 35%. Is this how they intend to use it? And is this what they actually asked you to do, or what was the starting premise?
Oh, well, yes and no. So yeah, we of course it was initiated by the client that yeah, we have to know what are our sustainability figures, or how can we pitch that to our clients who are asking for it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we kind of directed that to become a more not just let's fix it or let's fix the information as it is in at the beginning of 2020, but let's make it a more sustainable tool on its own, so that it evolves and it works on. Mm-hmm. The other side of it is we as designers, we are still outsiders. Yeah, it has its drawbacks, but it's good features as well. But that means that we can't do it for them. So we are not running the marathon for them. We are just the coaches. Mm-hmm. So we have given them the tools, and now it's their responsibility to make it happen. And all we can do is just ring a bell every now and then and ask, yeah, how are you doing?
Well, yeah. Once you build it, it will come.
I really hope so.
Anton, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I think it was already partly answered. So for me, it's always interesting to know how the project was established, because these kind of, and you said it, it's a strategic decision, needs a kind of management thinking that is, well, let's say more advanced. So you really want to have this willingness to transform the company in the long term. And I think one of the most difficult parts is to start, like, and who should start. So was it really the company who contacted you? Did they already have an existing kind of strategy and they wanted to improve it? Or was it you who kind of pitched the idea to the company and then they said, yeah, this is exactly what we want?
Well, that was a company that we had been working with for quite some time already. So we had other projects running with them, and then as I kind of told already, that they had a need. We just blew it out of proportion, and let's say that they needed some kind of a fact sheet that. Yeah, we are sustainable. So that was their need. That's what they knocked on our door with, among other projects. That let's do that as well. And we just saw there an opportunity to make it really count for them, so that it becomes a motivational tool for people inside the company, so that they understand that yeah, the bigger the company, the bigger leverage it is. So it's so cool to talk stories about these little startups that think that how they can make the world to change for the better. And for many, their raison d'être, that they're built on that idea, and then they just cross their fingers that they will fly and become big eventually. But there are a lot of these big businesses, big manufacturing companies, big retailers out there who have that leverage nowadays. And if they start to pick up these ideas, then the change will really come. So that's why I really like Ida's story as well, that she was working with Lidl. Not your usual suspect if you talk about sustainable thinking.
But definitely, that's where the scalability comes from, working with basically the mainstream companies. That's, if we can crack this, then it's easy everywhere. But
not an easy thing to crack.
Definitely. So what did the company have before you started this? Like especially in terms of sustainability, like how mature were they in the topic, or was this really the first time to undertake such a task? Were they warm already? Did they have some things already tried and tested?
Well, they were, as I said, they were doing bits and pieces. They had to comply with certain EU regulations. So that meant that they had to figure out, for example, that supply chain thing, that you can't support child labor, and many other things. So you have to know where your raw materials come from. And also it was their client-driven action, that their clients wanted on their packages in the stores, they wanted this huge sign that says that it's fair trade, or it's sustainable, or no animals were harmed in the making of this artificial lamb. So that was one of the drives as well. And of course, there were people inside the company who had their hearts in it. So they especially in the product development, because all that I was talking about, the full circle, our biggest supporters and partners in this case were from the product development department. They were involved throughout that's how they think. They don't think just about how to make a nice new model of a garment, or use some cool material produced somewhere else and apply that. But they think about how to work with suppliers, how to devise or invent new materials, checking along the way how sustainable they are, and what happens with the products when they are in use. For example, they had these things in the works all like constantly. For example, in textile, there is this there are a lot of contradictions. On one hand, you need to wash it with very warm water so that it becomes really clean, but that's not very sustainable. But if you wash it with lukewarm water, then it's not usable that well. And what do you do with textiles all together? So there are, that's one of the biggest pollutants nowadays. All the textile production, that they're still figuring out what to do with it. Most of it, can be recycled, but basically downcycled, not recycled on the same level or upcycled.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's always ambassadors in those companies, or allies in those companies to partner with. It's like when we are talking about it, everyone is talking about it as well. So it's about finding them. Maria Christine, would you like to voice your question, please?
Yes, thank you. Hi, thank you for the lovely presentation. I was just thinking, you mentioned a couple of times that their main purpose, or their first goal, that when they approached you with asking for this audit, was clearly to have this package or the message on the package, of course, with all the other values of it as well. But have they reported back to you how big or how the numbers have changed in terms of sales or marketing, and how much has it simplified their communication? I'm sure it has, but just from a little bit from a different perspective, from a marketing point of view, has it really? I'm sure it definitely was worth it, and but did they got what they expected?
Well, unfortunately, the answer is no. I can't tell you what has been the change, and since we are covering quite a long stretch of road as well, we are doing also packaging for them. So we would love to get to that point where we can communicate with end users and then say that we have now better products, but they are not that far yet.
What's let's say what's missing for this concept or for this approach to be communicable in your view to the consumer?
Well, as I said, if they are convinced that they can go public with that, the moment they say yes, then we have a bunch of ideas how to talk about it through different touch points.
I'm thinking rather like, is this, do you think that because it's a work in progress, it's like an internal working tool largely? So, So in that sense, like, do you think that from, let's say, outsider's perspective, it has to be either simplified for the consumer because it's very difficult to present it as such, or has some kind of key messages should be taken out? Of course, like, it's best to take the key messages out when you have something to have a good message about, so you can show improvement and you show good things. But how, what would you look at when communicating such a thing to the consumer?
Well, it's a bit different topic. It's the whole communication thing that once you have the data and you have a lot of it, but you can pitch one idea and you have to figure out what that, we have to like super simplify to get the attention. It is like this little symbol on a chocolate that it's fair trade cocoa that they're using in the chocolate. And just one idea, and of course there is a huge chain behind that makes it a sustainable product. And I'm sure they have invested in all departments, but they can't talk to you about that on the packaging. They have to pitch that one thing at you, and if you're interested, then you will go on their homepage and you can read all about it. And the same goes for this manufacturer as well, that you have to have this source of all the data if you're really interested. And again, we were talking so much about the packaging, but their main concern was their business to business clients. So how these big chains across Europe, that they have to know that they are buying from a sustainable manufacturer. Mm-hmm. And again, don't overestimate their level of how deep do they go into information. They make quick decisions quite often based on very shallow facts. So the executive copy basically had to be there as well. That if I have 3 minutes, then I will see from that fact sheet that you're good to go. But if that executive gives the package to their research department, then you have to have proof for everything, and have that volume of proof ready for inquisitive eyes.
So I think that let's say the CEO of the company, the management of the company, will follow like good numbers, or like they don't have let's say their own kind of prime motivation to do it themselves that strongly or drive the change. or are they more like responsive of the findings and responsive to the client that you mentioned that initiated the process?
It's a case-by-case story.
Mm.
There are, for example, if we talk about huge retailers, then there are some companies. Yeah, I mentioned M&S and Marks and Spencer, and there are others who make it a point of being kind of leaders in that area.
Yep.
And for many others, it's like the manufacturer can have a huge competitive edge if they come to that retailer and say that, yeah, but we have something that you can talk about. We have something that will make you a better retailer because you will have more sustainable products on your shelves, and that gives your marketing a completely different level. So, but that's case by case. Yeah, they would never go to Marks and Spencer and say that we have thought about sustainability. That would be ridiculous. So, and in many other cases, it's the other way around.
We have 3 minutes left, so we are running out of time to ask questions. So Maria, you had one more, please.
Sorry, a very short one, and I apologize if you mentioned it in the beginning of your presentation, but how long was the time for the whole process of the audit until you reached the final numbers and final conclusions?
Yeah, well, I would love to have worked on that for 3 years like Ida did, but in our case, I think it was more in the realm of 6 to 8 months. So, but that was up until what I showed you today. From there on, it goes basically forever.
Yeah. Thank you.
How long do you think that, let's say you said they're still digging for some numbers, which they don't, they don't have data for. How long do you think they have data for each indicator that you have proposed?
I'm sorry, how long do they?
Until they have data for each indicator that you proposed.
When is the world ready kind of question that I think it's a never-ending journey, and there are so many change agents as well. So you know at some point, but you have to recheck that. So I quite realistically don't think that it's an accomplishable task to have indicators for everything. But yeah, you can again try and you can prioritize. Yeah, we can have it for these sections, definitely. For these ones, we are working on it, and we'll work on the last ones if possible.
I think that's an important takeaway from it as well. That we constantly have to negotiate the existing case and find the best opportunity that we can do at this given time with this given client with those given circumstances. And Dan, thank you so much for this really interesting presentation. Likewise, if anyone wants to reach out to him, his contacts are on LinkedIn, and you can search on Brand Manual as well. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We have a next one coming up again in a month. And I know that a lot of people didn't come today because of September is the worst month of the year. And there were like so many things coinciding, happening at the same time. But I'm sure October will be much, much calmer, and we will have new speakers and new cases to talk about and to discuss and to examine with you, ready and up to go. Thank you everyone. My name is Markus again, and write me if you need to ask anything. And if you have a good project, you want to present yourself and test with this audience here, you're very welcome to reach out to me and let's talk about it. All right.
Thank you.
Guys. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Product placement.